Episode 2 of the Scores Table on 16winsaring.com, part of the 16winsaring.com podcast network. Got tons of other ones to check out, so be sure to do that. My name is Spencer Davies alongside my co-host Bob Demyan. You can follow us both on Twitter, me at Spin Davies, Bob at BobbyDigital2. Quite a feisty week in the league. A lot of tension between players, and that's what's going to start out our opening tip. So first, it was 20-year-old D'Angelo Russell woke up Damian Lillard. Dame said he poked the bear, and then he ended up just going off in that second half. Of course, a day later, Bulls rookie Denzel Valentine got a little too confident, leading John Wall to shut that game down with a buzzer beater in Washington. And a few days later after that, Wall found himself in another little skirmish with Jay Crowder at the end of the game between them and the Celtics. Ended up poking each other's nose. Before I hand it off to you, Bob, gotta say, I like this. It's good that players get mad at each other like this. I think it's great for the game to not like your opponent because that gives you more motivation to be better than that person. There's too much buddy-buddy stuff. I mean, you see a lot of things with LeBron and Dwayne Wade, and that's cool. That's cool that they're that close. But I'd rather see someone that just does not like somebody, like the aggression that Russell Westbrook shows or the aggression that DeMarcus Cousins shows. I think that's more needed in the league than this friendship-type stuff.
Yeah, I think it's about trying to find a balance. Something between the malice and the palace and being best friends with each other.
Yeah, you don't want it to get bad like that, but it's not bad to see somebody get a little angry sometimes.
Right, and exactly. Like you mentioned, the banana boat, Chris Paul, LeBron, Carmelo, Dwayne Wade. It's fine that they're friends. I'm happy they shake hands before the game, but once that ball goes up and they tip it off, you need to battle against each other, and you can be aggressive and kind of toss it up a little bit. Obviously, we don't want to see any punches being thrown, but get in each other's face. It's okay to talk a little trash. It's good for the league in a whole. And think about what started happening in the 80s and the 90s. That kind of helped spring the league a little bit, although it got a little too feisty at points there, and it ultimately culminated with the aforementioned Malice of the Palace. But it's something that was good for the league and drew attention.
Yeah, and it's not that I'm asking these guys to go out and slug each other around and throw each other all over the place, but it's just from an individual competitor standpoint, you can hard foul some people if you want to. Don't feel so limited to what you can do against your buddy because you don't want to hurt them.
And it's also a factor too with the way they're reviewing and being more sensitive about flagrants as well in the league, just in general, being more aggressive about monitoring hard fouls and for the safety of the players, which makes a lot of sense. And obviously we don't want any true boxing type fighting, but it is something that having a little competitive edge is never a bad thing in the league, especially when you think about guys like Russ. Thursday night provided us with 2 international games, one where the Nuggets just blew out the Pacers in a game in London, and the other where Dallas edged out the Suns in Mexico City. So Spence, yay or nay on these international neutral site games?
I like the neutral site thing. It gives a brand new audience, the product that we get to see every day in our own cities. And I love the international feel to it. As you texted me this week, you said that people in London probably think Nikola Jokic is LeBron James now after 22, 10, and 7. But I think it's a great idea. I think it's great that the NBA is going global. It's just going to broaden the fan base, and it's going to do well for the product. And like I said yesterday on my Twitter, I'm cool sitting down watching a 3 p.m. NBA basketball game on a weekday. That's fine. I think it's great because other teams will get that kind of exposure too by doing these things.
Yeah, and more teams get a national TV game like the Nuggets. They don't get on national TV very often. It was an NBA TV game and kind of gave them a standalone spot that they don't normally get. Same thing with the Pacers, really. I love these international games as well. I actually like the London thing and the NFL as well. I think it's great. Mark Cuban said something about a franchise in Mexico City that he'd be open to it or something along those lines. I don't know about all of that, but I do like the fact of going international. The NBA's been trying to go international for a couple decades now and just broaden their horizons. And I actually kind of think, why stop at just London or Mexico City? I know they used to have a franchise. Why can't the Raptors play a game into Vancouver? That'd be cool. Or play some in, Spain's good at basketball in the Olympics every 4 years.
Argentina,
Paris, Germany. all these things. I know I named a city and a country there, and that's conflicting, but whatever.
Right.
So I don't think you can stop it. All those cities are trying to broaden the game everywhere. And I think you can do that. China as well. I know China has, a lot of former NBA players. Stephon Marbury, he has a statue over in China. But I also started to think about even broader horizons about neutral site games in the States as well. What about the Trailblazers playing a game in Seattle or St. Louis? The NBA is also, the NBA was talking about expanding, adding Seattle back into the league again. You can do that. You can try out other markets. St. Louis, Pittsburgh. The NBA held an all-star game in Vegas. Why not have a neutral site game there?
Cincinnati and all these other cities like maybe San Jose, or you can name so many cities that have professional sports organizations there that you could bring it to. And I think that to branch off of that, that is an excellent idea, because now they will get the opportunity to see. I mean, if they don't have a team to watch, it kind of sucks for them. They got to watch it on TV. They don't got experience like these 30 cities have.
Or they got to drive or fly to see their favorite player. And, it's neutral site games. I would probably rule out division matchups, but like just in general, you can have every team play one. I mean, we play 82 games. That's an odd number by nature in itself.
Right.
I just think that would be interesting. And the thing is, a lot of these cities, St. Louis being one of them, like they hold a conference tournament in college basketball every year, so they have an arena. San Jose, NHL team, they have an arena. So you keep going along down these lines as you already have arenas built for these type of things, and that can hold an NBA game as well. So you're not having to build a new venue in these cities just to host a game or two a year.
I think it's a great idea, and the fact that you drummed that up, I'm actually really impressed because you never think about that. And there are other cities that want to watch basketball, professional basketball played at its highest level, and some places just don't get to see that.
Right, and like you say, you're trying to broaden your horizon and make it more of a, raise the exposure of your league as a whole, and more games in more places helps, even if it's just one.
All right, we talked about those global games. Unfortunately for the fans of London, they did not get to see defense being played. 140-112 was the final between the Nuggets and the Pacers. And this brings up my final topic here for the opening tip. What in the world is going on with the Pacers defense? So they entered that game on a 5-game winning streak, but still in those 5 games, they gave up 100 plus. Yesterday, they gave up 140 points to the Nuggets. Check this out. In 13 games, the Pacers have given up over 115 points. 3 times 130 points. So this is going way beyond something else here. I don't get it. Paul George is usually a pretty darn good defender, and he looks completely lost. He got torched by Gallo and Wilson Chandler on Thursday. So I don't know whether it's coaching. I don't know whether it's the personnel, whether it's the way the roster is constructed. Please, somebody explain to me what's going on in Indiana, because they've got it figured out on the offensive end. They've scored over 100 plus in a certain amount of straight games. Jeff Teague's averaging over 8 assists a game, playing really well, scoring. But defensively, I just don't know why these guys don't have it figured out.
I think it's a little bit of both as far as coaching and personnel. Just after being really high on the Pacers preseason, I'm not sure those pieces fit together defensively, like their units on the floor as a whole. But I also think it has to do with the coaching as well. They let go of Frank Vogel in the offseason.
Bad mistake.
Yeah, I agree. More defensive coach. They wanted a more exciting offense. They're getting that with Nate McMillan. Unfortunately, it went the other way. A little too far. They've only played 39 games. And how many games was it you said?
13 games they've given up over 115.
I mean, that's...
And there are a couple fringe games on there where they gave up 113, 112.
That's almost 1/3 of their games.
Right.
That is 1/3 of their games, exactly, actually.
They need a happy medium, but they don't have that happy medium, and certainly not from Paul George right now.
Yeah, and he's been a guy who's been on all NBA defensive teams, and they're just not getting that intensity, but I think it has to do with the philosophy change in Indiana, and then I'm not sure if those pieces as a whole are defensive, because guys like Miles Turner are having a good year.
Yeah.
Statistically. And with that, now we'll transition to 2 from the stripe. I'll start off this week. Social media mogul Joel Embiid has started his own Twitter campaign voting himself to the All-Star game and getting a bunch of retweets. He even then created a fake quote from President-elect Trump saying Embiid had his endorsement to be in New Orleans as well. Recently, I heard him on another podcast this weekend, as well as the Dan Patrick Show, where he talked about one day wanting to play point guard in this league and killing a lion at age 6, which I'm not 100% how I believe that and whatnot, but that's fascinating. And to top it off, he's freaking good at basketball, averaging 19 and 7 and a couple blocks too. Philly is in the process of winning 4 or 5. After the Sixers' buzzer-beating win over the Knicks earlier in the week, he told the crowd that they were thinking playoffs. Now I don't believe that the Sixers are heading for the 8th seed this year. At all. Embiid and the Sixers are exciting, and unlike U.S. presidential candidates in this country, he has my vote.
And he should. He's probably the most entertaining person in basketball right now. I've got people telling me that he's going to be the face of the NBA shortly enough because of what he's reaching as far as pop culture goes. Yesterday, he tweeted Triple H. He said he learned the little choking thing he did on TJ McConnell after the game winner from him. Triple H responded, he goes, in order to play the game, you got to go through the process. That was probably one of the coolest things I saw. I even tweeted about it. I was like, this guy is literally the coolest.
And you're a wrestling guy, too.
I love wrestling. You know that.
Yeah.
But I just think it's so cool that he's doing all this, and he's having a lot of fun. I mean, I'm sure that's a question with a lot of GMs around the league, whether he has too much fun, but he's not getting into trouble. He's basically like Shaq, if you think about it, as far as personality goes. And on the court, he's like Hakeem Olajuwon.
He's actually doing social media right.
Yeah.
As far as a player, he's having fun with it. He's putting himself out there. And the thing is, this social media campaign he's doing to get himself voted to the All-Star game, it's working. He's closing in on Kevin Love for that third front court spot in the East.
Yep, he's 4th in the second returns of All-Star voting. Yeah, you're right.
I think he's going to get there. I think we're going to see him in New Orleans.
I
mean, his play on the court, I think, deserves it. I think he deserves to be one.
Especially if you look at his per 36 numbers. They're just ridiculous.
Right, because he's still on the minutes restriction as well. Just amazing. I do. I think he's ahead of his time. He's doing, as far as the social media thing, other players have done it and been good at it. I think he's social media Hall of Fame status worthy of it. I mean, he's just doing things in a way that no one has really done before, campaigning it for himself. Just really excited. And like we said, he's really good at basketball as well. Just amazing to watch. And the Sixers get back Ben Simmons possibly soon. I know he started running through drills, I believe. I mean, the Sixers are going to be exciting. Like I said, they're not a playoff team.
But what if they make it?
We don't want to see them get swept by Cleveland in 4 games. But they're exciting. They're a real league pass team now.
And TJ McConnell's literally taken over that job, by the way. I think he's going to end up starting over Sergio Rodriguez for a while.
They still need a backcourt, but they need a lot of things. They're literally going through the process.
They are going through the process. You talked about him sneaking up on Kevin Love, so I'll switch over to the Cavs. They've fallen into their annual, what I call their winter rut. They're playing individual ball, averaging a lowly 15 assists per game since they hit the new year. They're 3-3 in those games, and that trio of wins were lucky. They played the Pelicans, Suns, and Nets for those wins. It seems like every time the wine and goal heads west, they get into this like funk. It's understandable to drop 2 straight to the Jazz and the Blazers, considering these teams are good at home. They play great ball at home. But especially knowing that there's a new piece added to the mix with Kyle Korver. He's pressing right now. You know he's trying to shoot better. But it happens to every new trade acquisition with any other team coming in. They're not going to fit in right away. On the good side of things, Cleveland gets to practice the day before they take on the Warriors at Oracle to try and get things all sorted out. And maybe that's what they need. LeBron, I know, is dying for a practice. Kevin Love is dying for a practice with their quotes after that Blazers loss. The positive thing for them is that they have not abandoned their defensive principles, which was the issue last time they had a losing streak. But if that session on Sunday does not help address the lack of ball movement and they're just porous shooting, Golden State is going to slaughter that team.
Yeah, that would kind of be like last Martin Luther King Day. In that sense, all these stretches when teams go west in the NBA or West Coast teams come east, they play a lot of back-to-backs or 4 games in 5 nights, and they don't get a chance to practice, and it creates a lot of ugly basketball. And that's why a lot of teams, not just the Cleveland Cavaliers, struggle on these other coast trips, I'll call them, in general. because they don't get a chance. And then you throw in, as you said, the Cavs adding a new piece to the puzzle. It's a big factor. You're going to see this. But at the end of the day, it is an 82-game season. Cavs are still the 1 seed in the East. They're going to be fine. They're the Golden State Warriors, who have 3 huge games this week against Cleveland, OKC, and Houston. If the Warriors go 1-2 this week, people are going to be like freaking out.
Yeah.
But in reality, should they? No, it's still the regular season. They're going to get it together. They have 82 games. They have practice. They'll get back. And in the playoffs, you don't play back-to-backs in 4 games at 5 nights.
And let's not forget that these teams going to Portland, there was a huge snowstorm this week.
Yeah, the travel with going to Portland this week was a cluster.
And I mean, it affected Portland too because they were in LA the night beforehand and Cleveland was in Utah the night beforehand.
Yeah, Portland flew up to Seattle and then
came back.
Yeah, drove back like 3:30.
Yeah, the Cavs landed there and they had to drive on a bus, and Channing Frye documented the whole thing on Snapchat. It was pretty entertaining, but it didn't help out that they didn't have a little run through that morning, the little shoot around.
Ahead of their matchup on Monday, is this Cavs-Warriors rivalry becoming similar to this 80s Celtics-Lakers like? The two teams, they don't like each other at all. They've had some verbal skirmishes in the media over the past 12 months and longer.
Cough, Klay Thompson, cough.
They've met in 2 straight finals, and to be honest, most likely a third. Each game they play seems like a big event. Monday night is no exception in that. Spence, do you think that this rivalry between these two teams, you got East in the Cavs, West in the Warriors, is getting on that trek like the old Celtics-Lakers teams?
Well, I wasn't alive for that era, and certainly just imagine legendary rivalry between Larry Bird and Magic Johnson going back and forth.
And other great star players too,
Yes.
Similar, both these teams are star-studded just like those ones.
Correct. So I can't really speak on it, and a lot of people, if anybody who listens is of age 40 or above, I'm not trying to say that these two do compare to that yet, because Celtics and Lakers did meet how many times in the finals?
Like I said, I think I was asking if we're on that trek, and I think we are.
If we're on the path, then I'd certainly say yes, because these two do not like each other one bit, and it is funny to hear the verbal jabs back and forth. And recently, Klay Thompson calling out the what was it? The cookies, the gravestone cookies.
Yeah, I mentioned the 3-1 cookies on Halloween at the Cavs Christmas party and called it childish.
They called them childish, but who really started all of this? Can we go back to the very first comment that was made between these two?
It was the champagne in the locker room comment last year when the Cavs, the same Martin Luther King Day game, when they matched up last year in Cleveland, Steph Curry said, "Oh, I wonder if the locker room still smells like champagne." Well, I hope the visiting locker room in Golden State still smells like cigar smoke.
Right.
Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, you got to fight fire with fire here. It's not like one party is responsible for another. They're both just engaged in a war of words. It's not childish. It's gamesmanship.
They're the last 2 champs, and when you're the champs, you can talk as much bleep as you want.
Right.
And right now the Cavs are the champs. They can talk some bleep, and as can the Warriors. Like these two teams, they are the giants of the league right now. And the verbal jarring is just,
it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
I kind of hope it doesn't stop, because you just see these things on Twitter and people will get so mad at each other, just fans going back and forth about it. And it's just entertaining. As long as it doesn't get into like a threatening type of thing. When you just see them jawing back and forth, talking trash as if they're on the team, I think that's the most fun.
I think it cycles back to the first topic we talked about in this very podcast. The competitive nature of these two teams is at a great height, and it's great for the league.
Yes, absolutely. And they're hopefully bringing that back a little bit. But Monday's matchup, that leads us into our final segment where we go around the block, find our most intriguing games to watch. Bob picked a great one last week with the Spurs falling to the Bucks without Giannis in San Antonio. So with that in mind, sans the obvious Dubs Cavs matchup, we're going to pick 2.
So first off, this week, there's not a lot this week.
No, this slate of games is just absolutely porous.
Yeah, and I will admit, when we do around the block here, I like to go outside the box. I already mentioned the Warriors have a crazy stretch where they host the Cavs and Thunder and then at Houston Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then we already mentioned the game against Cleveland, a little deep dive there. So I'm going to go with a battle of, I'm going to say the small guard special here. And it's 2 matchups. One puts Kemba Walker and the Hornets in Boston against Isaiah Thomas. Good little battle right there. One or both could make the All-Star game, etc. The next is the same Charlotte Hornets facing the dynamic duo in Portland, in Buzz City there. Really excited to see how the guards specifically, Kemba versus Isaiah and Kemba versus Lillard and McCollum, just focusing on those matchups, it's something I'm intrigued by, looking forward at the matchups this week.
Consider me interested in watching the Grizzlies and Wizards that same night. So Washington's finally seemed to start to find something with their squad. What John Wall's bringing to the table, Bradley Beal, he's really shooting the ball well.
He's not hurt yet.
Managing to stay healthy. And Otto Porter really improving this season, his play on the wing. Memphis, as we know, always a tough customer. You thought they were dead in the water against Golden State last week when they were down by 20 plus in the third. Come back and win it in overtime. I love those Grizzlies. But aside from that point, I think this is a solid measuring stick at home for the Wizards to see where they're at this point of the season.
I also love that Memphis is continually the zombie team. For the past 3 or 4 years, we kept on thinking they're dead and they keep on coming back. Memphis is... I love the Grizzlies, but
who can't love the Grizzlies?
Yeah, but sometimes they're like zombies. It's funny to me. It really is.
I don't know. I like Marc Gasol, and I always love Zebo. TA, one of my favorite players, just one of those grit and grind guys. Those guys just define what Memphis is, man.
Memphis is a team that really embodies what their city is. You think of Memphis, you think of the style of play actually that the Grizzlies play. You think of tough, blue collar. Mm-hmm. You think of that with Memphis. And I think it's a great pair for that city as well. They're entertaining because they're different. I think it's just a different form. Yeah. They're not entertaining like Golden State or, Cleveland per se, but they're entertaining in the same facet that San Antonio is.
Yeah, and I feel like that would be a good matchup to see what the Grizzlies could do against the Spurs. But that's for another time, and that's going to do it for our show. We'd like to thank 16winsaring.com, where you'll find excellent content around the league from our great staff. We'd like to thank you as well for listening. Once again, you can follow myself on Twitter at Spin Davies, Bob Demyan at BobbyDigital2. We'll be back with you next week right here on the Scorers Table.